Mobile hunters, if you're interested in upping your mobile game, then head to tetherednation.com and check out their saddle gear. There are a few things that you can buy that will actually help you become a better deer hunter or give you the freedom to hunt any tree or any situation. This reason is why I started saddle hunting in the first place and why I use Tethered's gear. I can honestly say that Tethered's saddle gear has changed how I hunt for the better. Big tree, little tree, from the ground, it doesn't matter. I'm untethered by my gear to hunt the best setup for the situation instead of hunting for a tree that my gear can use. My current core setup consists of the Phantom saddle, tethered one sticks, and the Predator platform, and along with an assortment of their accessories. So if you want to up your mobile game, head over to tetherednation.com. If you're like me, you spend a lot of time poring over maps, looking at weather data, all in an effort to help predict when and where my best times are to hunt. It'd be nice if there was a reliable source with all this information in one place. Enter the Spartan Forge app. Unlike some other predictive apps on the market, Spartan Forge was created from military combat intelligence experience tailored for hunters and stands at the nexus of machine learning and whitetail deer hunting. No more man-made algorithms. This is a predictive model based on real GPS collared deer data, historical and predictive weather, and the next level of mapping imagery, all at my fingertips. I've had an opportunity to use the desktop version of Spartan Forge last year and recently the beta version of the iOS app, and it has replaced all of my other mapping tools. Head over to SpartanForgeAI.com to sign up today to get your place in line as the mobile app launches soon. This podcast is brought to you by Skull Brew Coffee Company. Skull Brew Coffee roasts premium single origin coffee guaranteed to deliver the freshest coffee directly to your doorstep. The kicker? They're 2% for conservation certified and donate 10% of their proceeds back to organizations who support the interests of our hunting community. So go to skullbrewcoffee.com and pick up one of their 3-killer roasts and fuel your hunt and fill more tags with Skull Brew Coffee. Welcome to the Truth from the Stand Deer Hunting Podcast, brought to you by Skull Brew Coffee Company. I'm your host, Clint Campbell, and you're listening to episode number 251. Today, we're rolling into part number 5 of the listener Q&A session with my good buddy, Greg Litzinger. So stay tuned. All right. What is up, everyone? Happy Wednesday to you. Hope you're doing well. Hope you are feeling fine on this October 11th. Hopefully you guys got some timber time in. I recently just did a little travel hunt, a little excursion in the trailer. Did a lot more scouting than I did hunting, but did some learning on the new piece. I've been kind of investigating. Weather wasn't going to be great around the home front, so I decided to pack my stuff and head to an area where the weather was going to be just a little bit better. It was rainy still, but the temps were a little cooler, so it felt a little bit more like archery season, to be quite honest with you. And then took advantage of the wet conditions at home on Sunday and went and pulled some cameras, moved some cameras, did a little bit of scouting, found some food, found some more hammer scrapes. It's weird, man. I don't find a ton of rubs. I find a lot of really giant community scrapes, which, look, I'm not gonna complain. But it would be nice at some point to find some rubs kind of in and out of these giant kind of scrape areas, these community scrape areas. I guess that partially that is a little bit of a lie, because I did find some rubs not far from this last primary scrape area, this community scrape area that I found. And the reason I say I feel like it's a community scrape area, one, it's huge, it's big. It looks like it has been there for quite a while. It's actually not far from an area that I had hunted in the past and actually had a mock scrape. I just missed somehow in my postseason scouting in years past. I just didn't walk this one little particular corner. And this is just kind of like the way hunting is. It was maybe only 100 yards from where I had my camera set up and where I had a mock scrape. And it was like 100 yards to the north. And I never saw it. I never went through there. Whenever I went to scout this one particular area and I found a bed, I just went, I guess, just a little bit to the west of it and just completely missed it. So went into this past weekend and was kind of checking things out and trying to figure out what the game plan is here for as scrapes start to become more and more of a factor, and ran across that as I was going in to check my camera and pull it and move it. Found that scrape, and so I moved it. Of course, the necessary 100 yards to put on that scrape. So super pumped about that. Hopefully we'll get some good inventory there. But some of the other cameras, scrapes are definitely starting to become a little bit more active with young bucks, young deer. None of the giants necessarily have shown up yet per se. But the action is picking up. Anything that I have cell cameras on, scrapes and stuff like that, there's some of them that I'm getting inventory daily, just haven't had the right players kind of show up necessarily to make a move. And of course, this week the weather and temperatures just suck. I think it's going to be 80 on Saturday, which I might take that day and put a little extra family time in. That way I am good to go for the rest of the archery season with family obligations. But with that, we're going to go ahead and just jump into today's show. Not beat around the bush. We have another installment of the Q&A session that I did with Greg Litzinger. This is the marathon continued. Couple kind of pieces of intel that are pertinent this time of year that we talk about. We definitely have a session on scrapes and this kind of hunting scrapes in and around bedding. We talk a little bit about how aggressive should you be early season. I would say all things considered, a lot of states opened up just, a little less than 2 weeks ago. So we're still kind of in that earlier season phase where, bed hunting and stuff is still really, really, really important and really relevant this time of year. So we talk a little bit about how aggressive should you get during early season. And then, we also toward the end kind of talk about the hunting the different phases of the rut, because that's going to be coming up here really soon. Of course, we'll have the pre-rut time frame that's going to kick off. And so we kind of go through our approach to how we hunt each phase of the rut. Also, just as a quick heads up, have a killer podcast coming up, especially around this time of year, hunting scrapes and mock scrapes and stuff like that with Troy Pottinger. That's probably going to come out next week's episode. So I'd stay tuned for that, because Troy is just a killer when it comes to scrape hunting and mock scrape setups. And he's doing it in Idaho, where it's really, really challenging conditions. So it's just a little bit of a tease there to get yourself prepped and stoked for next week's episode. So with that, we're going to go ahead and jump into today's show. Quick housekeeping piece, skullbrewcoffee.com, coffeecompany.com. Head over there, get yourself some travel coffee for your travel hunts. Don't drink shitty coffee on travel hunts. Use the promo code TFTS21. Save yourself some cash. And then head to truthfromthestand.com, head to the merch tab, pick yourself up some merch, or you can go to my Instagram page. The merch is there as well. TFTS21, pick yourself up some truth swag. With that, we'll jump into today's podcast. And as always, thank you all for listening. Next question is, we already talked about stand placement in the previous session, so we'll skip that. We've already talked about exit strategies in thick cover. We've already talked about that. This one's for Greg. Will Greg be?
This one is for Greg.
Will Greg be rehabbed from his injury before bow season?
Which injury?
I think that actually came from Johnny Stewart, if I'm being honest. And I'm not even lying. I'm pretty sure he sent that in to me.
Johnny, I'll be ready. Ankle taped up. We'll be dragging a few more mountain bucks off the mountain this year. Don't you worry about that.
There you go. So that was a quick
I'll
answer.
do it one-legged.
So this is access. And I know we already talked about access, but he's specifically talking about like with or without a light. So whenever you're going in, are you using a light?
Green light.
Green light?
I use a green light for getting in because it gives a wider, I can see more out here, mainly for spiders. I don't have a phobia of spiders. I just don't like them on my face. Spider webs on my face. The green.
No argument here.
Yeah, the green. When I climb up, I usually use because my light will go. The red LED is a little dimmer, not as powerful. So the red light, I'll use red light climbing up.
Right.
But green, I think, I don't see many humans. If I do see another flashlight, like I turn mine off and I'll just let them go about their merry way. Some spots, in the salt marsh, I'm just walking out cattails. I don't really need a light. I know where I'm going.
Yeah.
Even walking some of the creeks, like I know I've walked some of these creeks for so many years. It's like I know pretty much what I'm doing.
Right.
Last year I hunted. Called Bassett Road, and I was trying to sneak in there in the morning. I thought I was super early, but obviously not. Like, I'm going through. I'm like, I want to get to this one spot, just shoot a doe. That's all I want, to just kill something. When was right before like my peak season of work, so I was going to be working, not have a life. I was like, I just want to shoot one more thing. And then walking in, it was like people having, lightsaber fights. It was like everywhere. And I'm just like, what's going on? How many people are hunting out here? Because I was the first guy in the thing, and I'm kind of just slowly going around. And then 45 minutes before, gray light, I'm just at the base of the tree, and it's like just lights everywhere. Big, giant white lights. And I'm like, somebody tracking a deer? I mean, it was like, it was on to the left of me and like to the right. I'm like, what? How many people out here? Because I was the only truck at the trailhead, Yeah. And then it like turned into like people from this way and those people here.
A party.
Like, yeah. And
Everyone knew Greg was there.
And I'm like, well, this is great. And I still seen a bunch of does that morning. I just couldn't get a shot.
Yeah. John Eberhard talks about that a lot, like in Michigan, right?
Yeah.
With a lot of lights showing up and stuff like that. So he doesn't use a white light either. I vary. If it's an area where I don't care and I'm just trucking through it to get to a place, then I'll use a white light just so I can see. Once I get close to, no, I don't want to say close, but once I'm in an area that's not just my travel area, there's a difference between like I'm in the woods and I'm going to be hunting versus I'm never hunting this place ever. I'm just going to bust through it as quickly as I can to get to where I need to go. And then once I hit that slow down period, then I'll change to whatever my, green light is, or I think it's red actually on mine. And I'll use that to get into the tree and all that stuff.
Like another reason, I like the green light. It don't kill batteries. The little headlamp I got, it's got 3 AAAs.
Yeah, I've had that happen before. That sucks.
The white lights always seem to burn more batteries. Even the red, like the white and red burn a lot more. I don't know what type of LED. I've had this headlamp for like 3 years. It's the longest one I've ever had. It's great. I bought it from Lowe's.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's like the green, just the battery lasts forever. So I'm like, oh, green it is,
Yeah.
And I can see, probably to where your bag is, and then maybe, 5 or 6 feet on each side of me. And it's a nice, even
Wide,
light.
right.
There's no like weird shadows or anything. So it's like it's perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. I should rephrase. So if I'm in an area where I think there's going to be people, I will use a color. So I don't give my location away. If it's in an area where there's not a lot of people and I'm just trying to bust through, I'll use a white one so I can see.
Do they have yellow lights? Yellow LED headlamps?
I don't know.
I think like an off yellow would be a good light to use.
I think red leather. I think yellow leather is the better option.
Red leather, yellow leather.
But I also try to use the moon as much as I can, and just not use anything. Like there's super bright, like full moon nights or mornings or whatever the case is. Like
full Cameron awesome. Hands on us.
I don't know what that means, but no.
He runs at night in the woods to train his eyes so he can see like a predator.
Can't say that I do that.
Well, maybe you should.
But maybe I should. So with that, I think we'll move to the next question before it gets weird. It already got weird. This person is asking, understanding. So he wants to understand, I guess how we're utilizing scrapes in and around bedding, how to hunt, basically how to hunt them. I guess, do you want to take a crack at this one first?
For me, scrapes and bedding, I'll hunt them in the morning only.
Really?
I'm not a big fan of hunting scrapes in the evening. Just because
Do tell.
Thermals. Like
Okay.
a lot of the bedding I hunt, there's water there or it's a swamp. So there's swirling winds. They're very inconsistent. So I don't want to ruin a good spot. Now in the morning, I just have more consistent wind and thermals.
Got it.
So personally, I know plenty of guys that are the exact opposite. I've had too many, not saying I can't do it, I've had too many close calls where a deer, he's coming into a scrape and like something happens. Mm-hmm. Maybe got my thermal, like I don't know what happens, it's a dead calm. Who knows what my thermal thing's doing, because I'm focusing there, milkweed, and see a deer, you're not paying attention where it's going, so I'm like, I'm in kill mode, and they come in and they just stop. And it's got to go back. So it's like, So morning, can't say that I never get that, but it happens less.
Okay.
So for me, I just work with what we're, how I can stack the odds in my favor. In the morning, I just have more success.
Right. That's interesting. I'll have to pay attention to that because I never thought of it that way. I mean, I'm paying attention to my wind and my thermals, but I've never really seen a difference. You're hunting along a lot more swamps and water than I am, though. Too. It's like I only have a few places where I'm doing that. For me, I'll only hunt a scrape if it's outside of bedding. Like that's really kind of like my. Otherwise, I don't know that it's a priority enough piece. And I guess I would go one step further. This is something I think you and I talked about previously. Is that it's like there's got to be a couple things that come together at a scrape for me to like. I don't want to say burn a hunt on it, but put a hunt on it, right? I'm not going to hunt if there's just like a random scrape and there's not like a couple other puzzle pieces. You know, I'm going to need to have known bedding and it's in cover, right? Or the scrapes in cover specifically, or there's 2 or 3 trails that are coming to it and that scrape kind of becomes the hub of the spokes of the tire that are kind of going off of it. Or I have to have some trail camera intel that tells me that a deer is hitting this in daylight consistently. Or there's does hitting it that I need to be hunting the area because does are hitting this now. So that means that there's shit's about to pop, you know, and so I need to be ready. There's a couple of those things that kind of need to line up for me. But with all that being said, what I'm trying to do now more than anything, and this comes from talking to a couple of different people, one being Nathan Killen, you know, dude kills monster bucks in the mountains in Appalachians and in Virginia. And I'm trying to become more comfortable not hunting the scrape and using the scrape as part of the intel and trying to figure out where can I intercept or where are those deer going to be prior to potentially coming to the scrape, because they may or may not ever make it to the scrape. You know, they may be downwind and just scent checking it. And that's a fine strategy, is to hunt downwind to the scrape 20, 30 yards and see if you can't intercept, right? That's a great strategy. Or is there a specific terrain feature that they're going to have to try to move through, you know, or kind of get back to where they might be. This might be earlier October. Can I get back to like where I think they're bedding and they're going to get up and go check that scrape? Because that's really how he's killing his deer, you know. And it goes, you know, it makes sense when you talk about hunting public land, because anyone who sees a big scrape, if they're also seeing it, because public, we can't assume we're the only ones that know where that scrape is, right?
What do you mean? Other people know?
Other people might know, yeah. And so they're going to probably do the exact same thing where, you know, this person's kind of asking. They're going to go, big scrape.
Well, especially
I want to set up on it.
Especially if the scrape's far from bedding.
Yeah.
Or close to human travel. Mm-hmm. Those scrapes are going to be gray light, probably, or dark.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, I guess that's good enough.
Yeah, I think we covered it. I think there's a bunch of different ways. I'd say don't let it just be the only factor you're evaluating. Have a couple pieces in play that say, hey, I should hunt this scrape. Yeah. And then one step further is, can you think about how the deer that potentially are going to use that you may never see hit that scrape, where are they going to be in proximity to that scrape? And that's, you know, a strategy that I'm trying to employ more, you know, this year as I think about, you know, the upcoming season and how I want to hunt some of these scrapes. Next question is music you pump before a hunt. Nothing. I go with Lemmy and Motorhead.
Yeah, I really don't. I couldn't tell you last time.
I'm actually lying.
I'm dead silent.
It's funny. I oftentimes am too. You know, I don't know if it's just because I'm in the morning and I'm just still trying to wake up and be like, oh, what the hell's going on?
I'm trying not to overanalyze or overthink. And I don't want to get too jacked up.
Right.
I'm not lifting weights. I'm trying to kill a deer. And if I get too jacked up, I'll probably make dumb decisions.
Sometimes I'll listen to a podcast on the way. Not necessarily hunting related. I'll just throw on a podcast, whether it's like Jocko or whatever, and just like try to keep it normal. I don't often listen to music related to hunting. Yeah. For whatever reason. It's, you know, if I do, it just happens to be whatever pops up on my phone whenever I plug my phone into my truck when I get in the morning, you know, or whatever XM channel it's on whenever I get in the morning.
Yeah, usually I don't really listen to music. It's like dead silent in my truck. Yeah, especially, I had Bluetooth in my truck 2 phones ago, and I've gotten 2 phones since, and I've never connected the Bluetooth from the last 2 phones to my truck. And when I'm driving, even like to work,
right,
I usually just have, if I got my phone on, it's got one earbud in, just driving into work, listen to,
Whatever.
yeah.
Yeah, so not a lot of rocking going on over here. We're
sorry.
basically...
I'm kind of a loser.
Yeah, I would like to tell you that I'm zoned in and I'm like
I'm
in kill
listening
mode.
to waterfalls.
I'm listening to
Yeah.
soft rain.
One of those things like, boom.
Right, the glass, like
Yeah.
the crystal.
Yeah.
Getting your chakras in alignment. Yeah, Greg getting all weird with it. Next question is, how aggressive should I get in the early season? That's a tricky one, man, because there's a lot of
That's a
layers.
loaded question.
Yeah, there's a lot of...
I guess, how do I get aggressive? Should I get aggressive in the early season?
I guess that's a good question there. Is like alone is like...
If you're on a good buck, you see by early season, I mean, you have, here in Jersey, we start second week of September. There's some states that start in first week of September or even at the end of August. And if you got bucks in beans or bucks out in fields and you're seeing them, I say get aggressive, because there's a light switch that we all know. It's like, and it's over. The party is over, and I'm separate from the herd. I'm going to do my own thing. So if you got a buck he's very visual, I say go after him. I mean, prime example is my first, industry standard big buck I killed. I was hunting my birthday, September 30th. He came through, and he came, 10 yards. I had him dead to rights, and he kept looking behind him. So I'm like, and it was a 6, big monster 6. Him and this, I don't know, I forget, maybe it's a 10 or 11, something like that. Those 3 of them were together. Well, Dave, when it came through, he's looking back, so I'm like, it's the big guy. Nope, it's the big 6. So I let the bigger deer walk, and I was like, this sucks. And on my birthday, I could have killed my biggest deer at the time on my birthday. Right. I let him walk, and I'm like, I'm an idiot. Absolute idiot. Like, I got greedy for inches of antler. Never again. So they were coming from beans, cutting this little inside corner that had the beans, and they were cutting. Some of the beans started to turn brown, up high, but down in the shade they were still green. And 3 days later, they're just slowly turning yellow, and they started cutting the beans down the street. October 5th, and I'm like, I got the wind's got to. I got to hunt this. And I remember going to work, and I had a picture of an 8-pointer. I actually still got it somewhere. It looks very similar to my deer. I was like, I'm gonna kill that deer tonight. And so I left work early, drove home, got my stuff. Wrong wind, wrong everything. They were cutting everything down, and I was like, I know these deer are still in here. Once the beans are gone, the cover's gone. They're like, because there's it's a overgrown field basically, next to some beans. So I literally went through the beans, absolutely everything wrong you should do. But I'm like, I'm going all in on this deer. And I went right to my tree, beeline, straight line, right to my tree, climbed up, and that buck came out, caught my scent right there, and I shot him. Everything that you shouldn't do, I did. But I know the food was going to be gone, the cover was going to be gone, like they're getting rid of everything. So it was now or never. So I got super aggressive, and it paid off. Yeah.
I think that, to your point, I think that's the exact right answer. I think if you have a deer that you can make a play on, and you're going to have limited chances or opportunities, then you need to go for it. I did that last year with that big one on that one piece that I glassed in that bean field. Like I knew that he was likely going to transition, and if I was going to kill him, it was going to be in the first 2 weeks of the season, because we opened last year. I think it was like September 15th. This year, I think it's like the 19th. So we opened in the middle of September, and while the beans were still good, and before he went hard horned, or just as he was going hard horned, would be my only shot to try to kill him. So I went all in on 2 different hunts up in his bedroom where I found him bedded, and that was it. I got 2 cracks at him, never saw him, but I never had him on a camera anywhere. So my thinking was right.
Yeah.
He never showed back up anywhere, and I had a couple cameras there. So not even during rut, I have no clue where he went. He just completely vanished.
Like I said, in the early season too, it's public versus private. Is it,
can you sit back and wait?
Yeah.
It's like, if there's a deer, where he's bedded, there's no reason why you shouldn't hunt him.
Like in where I'll be hunting in Delaware, it's super populated, but there's a few pieces of, like I call it hidden bean fields. Like you can't see them from the road. You literally have to get out. And Delaware, there is no like driving. Like you got to stop and walk. Well, it's like a 300-yard walk of just through the woods to get to glass the beans or look at the beans. Well, that's what the buck's going to be, and not too many people will be making that walk. So I'll be there Wednesday night for season open, with whatever wind I need, and I'll be glassing that bean field again. And just hopefully something shows up. If not, I'll be there, Tuesday night, or September 1st, whatever, doing the same thing.
Yep.
I know they're going to pop out,
Oh, they have to at some point, Yeah.
And it's still early. It's all about the beans and the end of August, September.
So let's flip it now and let's talk about like early season or opening day in the big woods. How you're approaching that, like whether it's aggressive or not, or like what's your setup, like what's your location you're probably keying in on for.
Never sat opening day in the big woods.
No.
Or I would say that's a lie. Take that back. I was thinking mountains, but open day in the big woods. Without having actually eyeballs on the deer, it's really a shot in the dark. Like you kind of know where they're feeding through. Like before trail cameras, hunting big woods was tough because you would literally just walk the old fire roads and just trying to cut a track. And you'll start there, and kind of just work your way back.
And it's still a fine way to start now,
But now with cameras, what's there because you're like, oh, that looks like a buck track. It could be a dink. I don't know, So, but now you actually have like visual thing. Like, okay, I could run 6 cameras along this cart road to every trail crossing. All right, boom, boom, boom. And then all right, time stamping them. All right, because odds are they're crossing that cart road, fire trail, where people can walk at dark. So it's like, all right, there are 2 hours, after dark. Well, that's a hard sell, or 2 hours for light. All right, that's a hard sell. But now we're getting into a half hour, 45 minutes.
That's where I'm at, man. Yep. It's like I need, it's hard for all the reasons that you had mentioned. I think for me, I'll be doing it this year probably in the new area I scouted, unless there's something around here that trumps kind of what I have going on up there. One thing, and I'll walk you through my thought process, and we can look at it that way. One thing I'm thinking about and having to kind of come to terms with or come to an understanding of is what is the likelihood of these deer transitioning, right? Because I kind of know where they're at right now. I know, and look, we all know that deer transition, testosterone goes up, they peel their velvet, they go hardhorn. I've also seen and experienced, we were talking about this today when Tony was over here, when we were just kind of shooting the breeze before we started podcasting. I've seen some instances with mature deer that when the transition or the shift happened, a lot of the mature bucks I had on camera in some of these big wood settings didn't really transition. Like they may have a little bit, or they may have broadened their home range as, October is here and rut is coming up. But the area they summered was contained by their fall range. And so they were still
somewhat local,
still home, so to speak, And so that's one thing with this area I'm trying to figure out, but I have enough bucks on camera right now in a couple of different spots where I'm like, they're not all leaving.
Yeah.
And then I think I said it today on whenever I was recording an upfront to one of the podcasts, I think I have probably 6 bucks that are shooters.
Yeah.
And so out of those 6, 2 or 3 got to stick around. Just the odds would say that something's going to stick around. Something's going to call that home.
Yeah. And I'll when I was hunting Long Island, I was hunting, this big patch of laurels, like just massive amounts of laurels. And all summer long, day walkers. It was like, 7 or 8 bucks. And New York starts October 1st. And once September 18th hit, all the big ones, peace. Never seen them. All the smaller 1.5 years stuck around. But all those 2 really good ones, and one kind of really good, but 2 monsters, September 18th was the last time I've seen them. I'm gone.
And I've seen that too in a couple other places that run cameras.
And Ricky was like, yeah, that's the shift. He goes, some of these bucks will literally go 3 miles. And I'm like, 3 miles? He's like, they're getting their little pockets away from people. Yeah. And I'm like, but that's little woodlots, small little woodlots. They have to go where they're safe because they know, well, this power lines.
Well, they can't be all congregate there because it's the social. It's the social kind of anxiety that being
not
around
even
other
it's danger
deer.
too. Like
Yeah.
a deer that's 4 years old, he's like, there's a lot of fucking people here. I'm
Yeah.
not living here. I almost got shot at. I'm going somewhere where nobody bothers me until fucking, October 20th, and it's like, oh, time to go find some ladies.
Right. Yeah. And that's why I'm thinking with this area, we're talking like several 100,000 acres where there's not really a need for them to go anywhere
Unless it's
per
food
se.
dependent.
Right. And so it's like, as long as there's food there, you would think, why would they leave to go somewhere else? Well, yeah, of course, acorns like we were talking about earlier.
Damn you acorns.
Damn you acorns. But so for me in that area, I've already started thinking, I kind of want to show you this on a map too before I leave, because I want you to kind of look at this. I have an idea of where I want to be. It's like I'm actually going to be sticking close to areas that have diversity of habitat, which oftentimes means like some type of swamp, water, bog, something, because it's just going to give me a bunch of everything. It's going to create edge. It's going to create feeding opportunities. It's going to create bedding opportunities. And that for me is what I would focus on in this particular big wood section. If I were in another piece that I hunt, I would ask Chad, because that's I would say probably, I think he would answer somewhat like this: wait for a weather front and go in. Otherwise, you're just pissing in the wind to a degree.
Absolutely.
And so some of that I think holds true even for where I'm going to be. I'm probably going to throw a hunt at it opening day, regardless of what the weather is, because I need to also get some boots on the ground and build some intel there as well. So that's kind of the other reason.
And that's too, like with the weather. If you know the area well, you know the deer well. No sense of rushing in, guns a blazing, if the stars are not aligning. Plain and simple. For me, like I'm in the morning, I hunt a lot of beds. There's some mornings where I'll sleep in and just drive around, look for deer in fields, because everything's wrong. I know there's good bucks in here, and it's like I really haven't seen anything else that this is where I need to be, but everything's wrong. I'm still driving around looking, but everything needs to line up. The right wind, the moon, you have all these variables of weather. That's when you want to go into an area, and go basically much all in.
Right. Yeah. All right. So I think we answered that one pretty well. This person, so we kind of answered the early season tactics in the big woods. So how would your tactics in the big woods differ for rut?
What part of the rut?
Let's break it down. Let's go early, middle, and then late.
For me, I'll say pre-rut is October 20th. It's probably before that, or I don't know the exact terminology or time frame that they say this is the pre-rut. October 20th, hunting scrapes. Rub lines in the scrapes. Transition off the bedding right around that time. October 20th.
So you'll transition away from bed hunting at that point and go to rub lines headed to scrapes.
Like October 20th was probably the latest, I should say, I hunt over directly near a bed or over a bed. I think by then they know what's coming. They're up on their feet. They're moving. And you need to find out where they're going to be, because they'll bed anywhere at that point. They're pretty confident what's going on, what's going to be happening. So find those, scrapes, rub lines, feeding in the, scraping areas. Scrape lines, not really a fan of. You might be in the middle of a 2 mile scrape line.
Right. Yeah.
But if you can find a scraping area, which is numerous trees, how I define it, be one tree with one or two scrapes, and then like another tree with a couple smaller scrapes.
Right. Primary scrape area where it's
So you get rub lines feeding that.
That's money there.
Yeah. That's what I focus on. And then once Halloween, get close to Halloween, strictly scrapes. Find active scrapes and just sit them. From the 30th, 31st, and the 1st, scrapes are hot. I don't care if you're in South Jersey, North Jersey, or Kentucky, PA. Those 3 or 4 days right around Halloween, it's like day walker central. Maybe I've just found the right scrape, but I don't matter if I'm 5 minutes from my house or 10 hours from my house. Those days are always fantastic. from just visual, me seeing it and cameras telling me, it's happening. And then usually it's a little kind of a dull spot, a transition from scrapes into rut funnels, terrain-based, funnels, something that's going to just force a lot of deer down.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think I probably follow a lot of the same logic as you, only I'm not much of a rub line hunter. I just haven't figured out how to use them yet. Every time we go scout together, it's like I pick your brain about rubs because I know that it's effective,
Rubs are very misunderstood because I've ran a lot of cameras and rubs, and they don't really get a lot of consistent use. One or two times, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
But
if you find one that's connected to a primary scrape area,
they use a lot of just travel corridor. I ran cameras on
it
rubs.
might be telling you an alternate travel route that versus the beaten down trail does are using versus the off trail that a buck is going to use.
Like the spot in Millville I found this year, I found 6 signpost rubs, 5 or 6, on a trail, which is weird for signpost rubs. Rubbing both ways, 360. And they're literally crossing this, staying low, staying in the deepest, darkest spot. I mean, you hunt there, even if I were to go there today at noon, it's still dark in there. Like, it's dark, It's very like a deep, dark timber pine almost, but it's like laurels and everything else and holly trees. But it was 5 or 6 signpost rubs. It went about 100 yards. So it is literally I'm assuming it's right around Halloween and bucks are coming in, checking things out. Maybe they might rub it or not. But I'm actually going to throw a couple cameras on them because I'm just curious to see what's happening. Have that many signpost rubs.
That's crazy.
Rubs all the way around. Like each one is 360 degrees. So it's like it's two-way travel, and you can see it. It's a trail. And it's like.
It's crazy because usually those signpost rubs are usually at like the center of where multiple bucks' home ranges are kind of
exactly. I've never seen anything like it. Like I found the first one. I'm like, wow, signpost rub. It's amazing. It's great. And then me and Tony went back. Then it was like, Tony was like, what's that over there? Is that another rub? And it's like, I mean, they're big. And it's like, we go to that one. Going to that one, we missed one. And then it was like, it just went right around this giant scraping area. So I'm assuming it's evening, since pulling down in there before they go up and maybe expose themselves because it's really dark and nasty where all these rubs are.
Yeah.
But it's like I got a tree picked out where it's like, all right, and you're only going to be 6 foot off the ground, so thick, 5 foot maybe,
Yeah.
Some of these rubs are so big. I'm like, if that deer comes underneath me, it's going to like tink my stand. But it's curious, I'm curious to see how often they're rubbed because they're just, hourglass shaped, beat down. And I'm like,
for years. It's not it's not a season where it's multiple years.
And I think I'll probably have a lot of different age class bucks coming through there.
Right.
Yeah. Might never be one mega giant,
Yeah.
But it'll probably be maybe a couple bully bucks,
younger or the smaller bully bucks that run the block.
I'm just curious to see.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what you find there too, man. I mean, that's a really interesting kind of setup.
It's like it's such a good spot. I would love to, put an XS camera or some good camera in there. But I'm like, what'll happen? It'll get stolen. That's what'll happen.
Right.
So I'm gonna have some shit $30 camera getting grainy pictures, and it's like,
right. Yeah, they'll cut the tree down and take it. But I mean, for the most part, man, I follow the same logic as you outside of the rub stuff. The one thing I will do, like you said, when you transition to those rut funnels, I'm looking at those. You probably are too, from the perspective of I'm trying to get in between doe bedding and trying to find how are they traveling from doe bedding to doe bedding. The one thing that I really only use this on one property because it's the only property I know this to be true on, is that, I learned this from Don Higgins at one point. I think it was Don Higgins. Adult does pass their estrus date onto their fawn doe offspring, right? So mama doe comes in, let's just say the second. Baby doe is going to come in the second. The baby that baby doe has next in 2 years is going to come in on the second. That baby's doe, baby, so on and so forth. So doe family groups typically share the same roughly estrus state within a day or two of each other, right? Because it's usually like the grandma, the mom, the baby, the other baby, like a couple generations of does. And so what I've learned on one piece is when there's doe bedding on this ridge at the south end, there's doe bedding at the north end, and I actually found this saddle that kind of connects the two together. And I've sat there on 2 different years, and I actually put a buddy there in the years that I'm not there. And every year around the same time pops off like crazy, and you'll get like 3 days of rut like you've never seen before. And it's literally just all day buck parade back and forth between doe bedding areas, because I know that those does come in on the 6th.
Yep.
Like that's the date that they come in, or leading up to. It's usually like the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th, or 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th, or whatever it is.
Yeah, within a day or two.
Yeah, it's that window. I killed a buck there on the 6th. And the activity the day before was bonkers, and the activity the day after was bonkers. I put my buddy in the same tree, and he killed a buck out of it too. And so it's trying to find, if I do know the dates for those does, and you can figure that out too just by watching scrapes with cameras and watching doe bedding areas with cameras. Like figure out when the bucks get real curious in those areas. Man, their breeding dates are within like a couple day window of that for that particular doe family. And if you know they're going to bed in a certain area, you can bookmark it every year.
And that's, like I said, October 20th scrapes. I don't care if it's South Jersey or
well, I saw it last year, and it's like
a switch, and like you said, that
and
makes
it's a couple days on either side, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's like, not hearing about the does. I know I killed one buck in the mountains. He was bird dogging a doe, going back to, I guess she was going back to bed, and he was on her ass. And that was October 20th. And like he was all rutted up, swelled up, stinking, and big mature doe. And so I'm assuming that area is probably hot, because there's a doe bedding over there probably every year. I haven't been back since I killed that deer, but it's probably like, if that is true, then that's probably a spot you can pencil in every year, like be here.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
You're going to have success. You're going to see deer.
You're going to see deer. Yeah, you can't tell whether or not, is a good buck going to come through when you're going to be there. Like, you can't tell. But if nothing else, and you know what time or when these dates come in for these does or these doe families, it's really effective too, for people out there that are listening, if you hunt like family farms or whatever. So maybe bucks aren't bedded on your property, right? My dad's property is like this, where bucks aren't there except during the rut. It's the only time I see good bucks on that property. You usually get 1 or 2 good summer pictures, and then otherwise you'll see a handful of decent bucks on the property during the rut. What you can really do is, if you know where your does are bedded on your property, on your farm, watch them for a season or 2 and put cameras where they're bedding and figure out when those doe families come in. And now what you can do, and typically the first one that comes in is, and this is all stuff I learned from Don, or it might have been Steve Bortilla, actually, it was Steve Bortilla, is that the doe family that is the matriarch of the property, so to speak, the dominant doe, she's going to have the best cover, best food for her group. Typically going to come in first. The doe family is going to come in second, is going to have the second best, so on and so forth down the line. So figure out who the dominant is. They're going to come in first. Figure out what those dates are, and everything is going to kind of follow suit. So now what you can do, if you're hunting the rut and say maybe you don't have like a ton of good scrape activity on your property, because my dad's property has shit for scrape activity. But if I know when these doe groups are coming in and where they're at, all I need to do is hunt the doe group, be where the doe group is going to bed, and those bucks are going to show up on that property.
Now you got me thinking.
And now you can just doe hop. So now you're not burning out spots. It's like, I'm going to hunt this for 2 days because they're going to be in. I'm going to hunt this doe group for 2 days because it's going to be in. I'm going to hunt this doe group for 2 days because they're going to be in.
Like I told you, I found that doe bedding area in the swamp. That 150 yards past that, last month, I found another doe bedding area. It's right where 3 or 4 properties kind of meet. Anti-hunter. There's a vegan, I think, and like an anti-hunter, basically. And they're pretty much bedding on the high knob right on the border. They're about 150 yards apart. Looking at it on the map, they're about 150 yards apart. So now I'm going to throw a camera, this year. Just burn. Like I'll probably burn a few sits on each one, but go put a camera end of September.
Yep.
Just put a camera in there and put a camera on that one. I actually got a camera on that one trail that'll probably get stolen. I can't sit there. I had to go down in the swamp. And actually, because he said if that is true, there's going to be some relatively consistent year in, year out.
Yep.
And I have another spot. So I actually know there's 3 doe groups put it in there, like big doe groups, not like 1 or 2 isolated does, like 5, 6, 7 does.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would totally throw cameras on those, if nothing else, for this year, and understand like when do bucks start sniffing those areas. And then as soon as you know what those dates are, it's like on a day or 2 on either side, they're going to be pretty consistent year in, year out.
That's good.
Because I've seen it play out in the one spot I hunt in the Midwest where it's consistent year in and year out.
Is November 12th.
Right. Yeah.
I'll get them coming through the yard.
Yep.
Almost like clockwork. If I put a camera back there, that's the day.
Yep.
That's the day when a big deer will show up. Like, surprise, I'm here, and I'm gone.
And like I said, it's like you may not find the biggest deer, but if there's a big deer in the area and you know there's a big deer in the area, chances are he's going to want to check those out.
Yep.
You know, so. All right, on to the next. So this person's asking how to get non-traditional ways to get intel on out-of-state public hunting. Oh, that's an interesting one.
Non-traditional.
Yeah. I don't know. I think they're all traditional. I mean, I think
social media is good.
Yeah. The one thing I started doing is, started kind of watching groups for states that I'm going to go hunt. And if nothing else, trying to find some people who might be in the general area. And if I can figure out, like, are they in a town that's like 20 miles away or whatever, and just look at dates that they start posting bucks, like pictures of dead deer. Because that's going to give me a good idea of like when they're up, when they're moving.
Truck driver, like Tony was here. I told him he should be logging that stuff all the time. He does it. I don't know why. Like, you literally spend your life behind the wheel. Like, it just be a cool diary, truck driver diary, all the stuff he sees, be it deer, accidents. But I know for truck drivers be a good thing. A truck stop. You find across, if you're going to be hunting Kansas, go to your local truck stop. There's somebody there from Kansas.
The other one too that I found that was helpful, and this was in Iowa, was actually the gas station attendant, but it was a woman. She was willing to give up intel because she wasn't hunting. And she was like, hey, what are you doing? Like, I gave her my license for something. Maybe I was buying beer or something like that. I don't remember what it was. And she's like, oh, you're from Pennsylvania. And I was like, yeah. She's like, you out here hunting? And I was like, yeah, out here hunting. I told her where I was hunting. She's like, oh, yeah, my brother or whoever used to hunt back in here, and they hunted over here. There's a really big deer over here that I heard about, and just started dumping intel. It's like, so it doesn't have to be the dude at the gas station pumping gas. Like, the lady behind the counter, people are willing to talk to her because they're not worried about her going out and killing the deer. And so that was one thing I kind of learned on that trip.
She was just baiting all you guys. Like, there's a big deer over there. She's like,
she was actually hunting a sucker from Pennsylvania, But so, I mean, that's one. I mean, that's kind of one that's pretty traditional, though. Like, when you go and you start talking to locals, social, using that has been helpful. Mixed reviews on that. Like, I think one, and this is traditional, but it's way underutilized, is the wildlife biologist for the DNR for that state, for that area. Like, they want to talk to people about what's going on the timber they're managing.
Montana, when I went first time elk hunting, I was on the phone. They were probably getting tired of talking to me. I'm like, all right, so what about this? And I hit them, what about this? And they're just like, yeah. After like 2 hours of talking to a guy.
But yeah, I mean, it's one that I underutilize, which shame on me for that. But
yeah, see, I don't go out west.
I mean, I talked to one last year before I went to Missouri, gave him a call, because I had no clue what I was getting into out there. And he steered me in a good direction, like more than anything, because I didn't know exactly where I was going to be going. He helped me stay away from certain areas where I told him kind of like what I wanted. Yeah. And he was like, you're not going to want to go here, here, here. There's a lot of blacktop access, so he steered me clear of that stuff. I haven't talked to anybody in Kansas. Chad has, though. Chad, that's the one thing, hunting with a buddy, we kind of divide and conquer. And then the other part is, not going to be ashamed to say it, this podcast. It's not a mystery as to why whenever I'm going to another state, why all of a sudden you start seeing podcast guests pop up on the podcast from that state. It's like...
Think you're slick.
No, I don't think I'm slick. It's like I'm literally, and I'm not asking them where they're hunting, but I'm trying to just understand.
I don't know where you're hunting, but where are you
But
hunting?
where are your pins at?
Yeah.
It's, for example, like obviously going to Kansas, had Eddie Claypool on. Eddie's from Oklahoma, but he hunts Kansas a lot, trying to learn a little bit about that. Would like to have Jared from, Whitetail Addictions back, or Whitetail Adrenaline back on. Why? Jared hunts Kansas a lot, you know what I mean? And he's, hunts from the ground a lot, which I'll have to do a lot of, and so I try to have guys on the podcast in areas that I'm going to probably be spending some time, and so that's my non-traditional way of doing it. I started a whole podcast for that. I've been running a podcast for 6 years to do nothing but get non-traditional intel for my hunting trips.
Yeah, so listen
quite
to
a commitment.
podcast guests from that area you're hunting.
Yeah, it's quite a commitment that I've made for that.
I've been waiting for this moment for 10 years. Yes.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So anyway, all right, we'll move on to the next one. So, all right, folks, that is a wrap for today's show. I'd like to thank all of you for listening. And if you haven't yet, please head over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star rating. And hell, while you're at it, head over to YouTube and give us a sub there too. I'd be super appreciative if you'd be able to do those two things for me. And before I shut this thing down, I need to give a big shout out to our partners who continue to help us make this podcast possible. Tethered, Exodus Outdoor Gear, Skull Brew Coffee Company, and Maven Optics. And until next time, we'll see y'all.